is an amazing anomaly in that it's a supermassive structure made of stone, but it's a multifunctional stone computer. And I spent decades, absolute decades, climbing in it, number one, which you've seen many pictures of me inside of it, but also analyzing and accessing all the different mathematical encoded wisdom in the Great Pyramid, which a lot of it now has actually been published scientifically. And so I've had the privilege of being able to be a part of that and be a part of that whole discovery of these mathematical and encoded wisdoms that have been built into the Great Pyramid. And what it tells us is this: as far as classical physics, it tells us from that standpoint that it's a sphere. The Earth is a sphere, because we discovered that the Great Pyramid at Giza, that particular one, the largest one there, right at Giza, it happens to be a perfect match for a scale down of the actual Earth itself. If you take that pyramid and scale it up 43,200 times, it fits on the inside of the Earth. If you put it inside of a sphere, each one of the points touches a point. And if you put a second one in and make it a star tetrahedron, it'll touch even the South Pole, the North Pole, and all corners, which is pretty interesting. Now, if you look at the technology and the way that it's built, you can make a lot of calculations from the Great Pyramid. You can calculate the tropical year from the length of the base, which is 9,131 pyramid inches at the mean socket level, which is going to give you 365.24 cubits, which happens to be the number of days in a year. You can calculate, the other thing is you can calculate the perimeter of the base divided by 100 equals 365. So you can still get the year. Now, what's interesting is when you get down to the tropical year, the length of the antechamber is used at the diameter of the circle, which produces a circumference of 365. But the ratio of the lengths to the grand gallery to the solid diagonal of the king's chamber times 100 equals the number of days in a tropical year. So you can calculate all these things out of the pyramid. So I'm just showing you a couple of examples. But when you get deeper into these mathematical equations dealing with the Great Pyramid, you discover something very, very interesting. The first thing is you discover that the king's chamber is right above the grand gallery, and the grand gallery, the coordinates to the grand gallery equal the speed of light in meters per second. And we discovered that meters existed long before the metric system existed in modern times, because we discovered, if you even look, you can even look it up on Wikipedia Commons, you can discover that, you can see that they discovered the metric system in Proto-Sumerian cuneiform. And what's interesting about where they discovered that in Mexico. And so we know that approximately 8,000 years ago, they already had a metric system. All right, so meters per second, not a big issue. But the next thing that you discover is this. If you take the length of the base at the side, which is 365 pyramid cubits, it's going to give you the mean distance to the sun. So if you do this, if you take the length of the base at the side sidereal socket level of 365 pyramid cubits, which is accurate to 6 digits. The mean distance to the sun is half the length of the diagonal of the base times 10 to the 6th power. It's going to give you the length of the distance to the sun, the mean distance to the sun, and it's also going to give you the mean distance to the moon. And through that same calculation, you can even get the distance from the Earth to the sun, the moon, and how fast the Earth is moving around the sun. So you can get a calculation of the speed of the Earth around the sun, the distance from the Earth to the moon, the distance from the Earth to the sun, and through 2 more calculations, you can actually even get the distance, the circumference of the sun itself, and then you can even get the speed of the sun around the galaxy. And what's interesting is built into all of this, of course, is the scale, 43,200. So we know that if you take the pyramid and scale it up 43,200 times, you get the sphere of the planet itself. Another thing that you can do simply as well is you can look at stand at the shore of an ocean. Like I have an ocean right here in Florida. I'm 6'4", but just assume I was 6 feet on the dot. If I was 6 feet on the dot, then when I looked out from the shore, standing right at the ocean's edge, I would be looking at approximately 3 miles. I get 3 miles of arc view standing from the edge of the shoreline at the beach. You can even see, if as you look out at the ocean, you can see the curvature as you look around. You can see that it seems to be curving in this horizontal fashion, but it also dips off, because if there's a ship sailing away from me, it disappears in the distance. But if I get on a ladder and go up 6 more feet, I gain another 3 miles of view. I can see 3 more miles out. As the ship continues to sail away, if I can go up another 6 feet, now I'm 18 feet up, I gain another 3. However, I can't do this infinitely. As the ship continues to sail away, at some point, no matter how high I go, I can't see it on the horizon anymore where the sky meets the ocean. And the reason why is because it's gone off the edge of the horizon. It's gone off my visual view. My visual view is being cut by the horizon point at that moment. If I'm standing at the top of the Empire State Building at the same time that there's fireworks going off in London, I can't see the fireworks from there, no matter how powerful of a telescope I have, because of the circumference of the Earth. It's not going to allow me to see. Somewhere by the mid-Atlantic area, I won't be able to see the bulge or the spherical shape of the Earth is going to prevent me from seeing all the way across to London. So there's just a few things that, you can take into consideration. In classical physics, everything is based on spheres. And even when you get down into the microscopic, into the quantum world, you discover that, everything is based on spheres there as well. And orbits, spheres and orbits. And so based on my understanding of quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and a lot of the sciences that we use today to shape our what we call modern world, it appears to me that a lot of the people that are working in these facilities and these places are accurate. So for example, if you take a look at the number of employees, the number of people employed at the number of universities that are offering graduate degrees as astrophysics, there's 59 universities in the United States alone. The number of people employed as astronomers and physicists has been growing at a rate of 19.9% per year, from 11,206 people in 2019 to 13,441 people in 2020. That's a lot of people studying the knowledge of the planets and movements of stars and planets, and getting paid a lot of money that don't work for NASA. And they're working and doing incredible work that helps to shape our modern world today. And how hard is it to become an astrophysicist? How hard is that job to get? Extremely hard. And how hard is it to graduate for that? It takes a lot of years. You'll need to have 6 years just for your bachelor's degree, which is true for many other professions. But then comes graduate school, where it can take up to 7 years just to become an astrophysicist. An astrophysicist is a very high level physicist that has to do with the understanding of science of space. And so there are literally thousands of astrophysicists. There's tens of thousands of people in college for astrophysics and astronomy around the world. And all of them who do graduate and become work in their field, working for all these independent and private corporations and companies, and some even starting some of their own. But I don't believe that all these people are working to try to make the world think that the Earth is not flat. I don't think that's their goal. My personal opinion is that these people are working in a field where they're striving for developing new advanced forms of technology, propulsion systems, understanding movements of stars and alignments, understanding gravitational fields, understanding then also from the physics aspect, tetraons, quarks, how atoms work when they collide and separate, wormholes, Einstein-Rosen bridges, and all these other different types of amazing anomalies that we know exist in space-time, black holes, and so forth and so on. And so we know through those sciences and through those scientists, through experiments done in space, that everything wants to create an accretion disk, the same type of disk that you see looks like the Milky Way galaxy. But what's interesting is the Milky Way galaxy has all of these objects in it that are part of this disk. In these objects, if you take a grouping of matter, just random pieces of matter in space, and just let them go, over the course of a few hours, they begin to circulate around each other and they begin to clump together. They begin to work to make themselves into a sphere. And so no matter what we do, things just want to be parts of spheres in this dimension. Molecules, from atoms to molecules, all the way up to combinations of molecules, which makes things we consider to be solid. And that also include organic things that grow as well. So my personal opinion, just my personal opinion, based on a lot of scientists that I've studied with and talked to, and my time at MIT and everywhere else, I don't believe that all these people are working to try to make us believe that this Earth is a different shape. I know people that have been to Antarctica. Matter of fact, one of them is going to be has his own TV show coming out on my network. His name is Brad Olson, and we've got his footage and his coverage, which is going to be part of the show. I just don't see where it's happening. So maybe I can be enlightened. I mean, it's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
My years of research and study, that's what I came up with.
Listen, Billy, I definitely appreciate that. I'm gonna allow the brother Dr. Phil Valentine to respond. The one thing, like I said, I've never got into flat earth that deep, but you said something that I'm gonna take with me, Billy, and that is everything wants to be a part of a sphere. You kept stressing spheres. So that's something that me moving forward in the knowledge of this whole thing and understanding everything around me, that's something I'm gonna take with me. Dr. Phil Valentine, I want you to give your take on this whole subject, and then we'll move on. My brother, go ahead. The floor is yours, my brother.
First of all, thank you, Billy.
No problem. Thank you
for that. I just want to say to the family that I am going to be doing a 7-hour webinar on all that has been hidden from the scientific community, going all the way up to MIT. And I've had professors of MIT as my students. And I want to first drop a couple of simple facts that possibly each of you can also use as a kind of guidepost. First of all, if the Earth is covered by a gaseous ball of the ionosphere, the troposphere, and so forth, and space is a gigantic vacuum, other than the theory of gravity, how is it that our atmosphere stays and is not being sucked out into a vast universe that is greater than the sum of our sphere, the Earth, 25,000 miles around? The other thing is that if the Earth is 25,000 miles around, how is it that when you use a, say, sextant or what is known as theodolite measuring, these are some of the measuring tools that engineers and people who are dealing with building on the land, they use that, and they clinometer, I believe it is. And what they find is that when you shoot a laser for a mile on supposedly a curved Earth, they made the calculation that after a mile, if there is a curve based upon 25,000 miles around, then after that particular beam goes a mile, then automatically there should be a drop of 6 feet at that point. Go up about another few feet, as our beloved brother was speaking about. Then, if that's the case, there should be at least a 12-foot drop, and so forth. And what I find when I was flying at 35,000 feet, that it seems that the horizon rises with you. Now, either the Earth plane is flat, or they are lying about the dimensions of the Earth itself being only 25,000 miles around at the equator. If that's the case, at 35,000 feet, I'm supposed to see the curvature of the Earth, and we don't. The higher up you go, the horizon rises with you, which means that we're looking at a heck of a lot more of the plane of Earth than is assumed in all the colleges and all of the places where people have been given that particular book to study. I wanted to also say that the flat Earth, as he said, is Aristarchus, who was the one who first actually introduced this globe Earth principle, and he actually introduced it to a king by the name of Galen in one of his writings. And it was after that that Copernicus picked up on Aristarchus's information about a globe Earth. And what happened is that the Catholic Church at that time wanted to make sure that they completely subverted the ancient knowledge, particularly the origin of the Catholic Church itself, the origin of Christianity, the origins of everything that was based in the law at that time. 10, 20,000 years ago, everything that you see in the history of our plane of existence, every high civilization knew that the earth was a flatted plane. Now, bringing ourselves up to there are over 200 or 300 things that I'm going to speak about, covering as much as I could at the webinar to show you that the principle of the flatted plane, which they call a flatted earth, is ridiculed. It's ridiculed for a purpose. The fact of the matter is, scientists, renowned scientists, have been actually promoting this. The one who came along to actually subvert the movement of the earth was actually Einstein. The introduction of the theory of relativity, and again, I keep speaking about theories, the theory of gravity, the theory of relativity. All of them are theories, which are working hypotheses. They're not theorems. They're not proven facts. The problem is that when the fact is tested to be proven, then that's when all of the naysayers, like Einstein, comes out. And of course, those who run the New York Times and so forth, they will big up those who they wish to actually promote the illusion, because we're still in that matrix. Now, the reason why I'm going to say what I'm saying is I'm going to offer scientific proof based upon scientists that have been suppressed. These are scientists that have been suppressed for their knowledge and for their works. And people like, when you start elevating things like the Coriolis effect, and you start dealing with things of that nature, which we're going to talk about as I can within the short period of time we have. Again, please understand that I'm only scratching the surface with what I'm going to be offering you. Between the years 1881 and 1887, there was a doctor by the name of Albert Michelson. Now, Albert Michelson was the first American to win the Nobel Peace Prize, the first American to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And he did an experiment that discovered the Earth was not moving around the sun. As Michelson himself said, and he described the results on his own experiments, he said, quote, "This conclusion directly contradicts the explanation which presupposes that the Earth moves," end quote. Michelson found the Earth wasn't moving by using two light beams against one another. The first light beam was pointed westward because it was the presumed direction of the Earth's movement around the sun. The second beam was pointed northward and thus away from the direction of the presumed eastward moving Earth. The first light beam should have been affected by the Earth's movement through space if the Earth is moving around the sun at the accepted speed of 66,000 miles per hour. If so, the first beam would have traveled slower than the second light beam. Now, I'm doing this. This is a very edited, very cloistered piece of information so that you can do your own due diligence on it. Now, the first beam supposedly have traveled slower than the second light beam, but it didn't. According to Michelson, both beams traveled about the same speed. The first beam traveled only 1/6 of the retarded speed necessary if the Earth was moving around the sun. Conclusion, the Earth was not moving. But since his colleagues at that time, including Albert Einstein, who was a Zionist, a plagiarist, and a science fraud, who married his cousin and married her two daughters. This man that they're lionizing, Einstein, Golden Bridge, Einstein this man is a fraud. And at that particular webinar, I'm going to name every one of the scientists he stole his E = mc² formula from. Most people don't know about the history, and nobody digs into who these people that they lionize as the scientist god that he's supposed to be. But you have to remember, this man Einstein worked as a patent office clerk. He worked as a patent clerk in Bern, Switzerland, where all of the great scientists of their time, the white side, were actually handing in their theses. He took from them, he stole from them, and it's proven, and I will prove it at that webinar. Now, his colleagues were all die-hard Copernicus people. They all believed that Copernicus was law, and they believed that Nicholson had discovered a motionless Earth because he thought his thinking of being a motionless Earth was based on his faulty apparatus, and it was distorted by the Earth's motion through space. And thus Michelson's apparatus only made it appear as if it was moving. In scientific parlance, this is a fallacy called petitio principii. That is, quote, and this is what it means, a fallacy in which a conclusion is taken for granted based on a majority support of the stated premise, a circular argument which begs the question. An example of petitio principii is the ongoing premise of physics and the movement of the Earth. Quote, scientists say, and this is what it is that someone would say to me. Scientists say the Earth spins at 1,039 miles an hour and circles our sun at 66,000 miles an hour. But then how do you know this? Well, because the sun is the center of our solar system and gravity does this. But how do you know this? Because all modern scientific data that I reference for validation of this fact says so. But how do they know? Well, because they're scientists. That is circular logic, and that's what we're dealing with when it comes to dealing with this particular subject. Now, there were scientists, great physicists, who took a serious look, and these were people who were Nobel laureates, who took a serious look at Michelson's work, Michelson and Morley's work. Physicist Arthur Eddington, quote, there was just one alternative, and this is based on the experiment. The Earth's true velocity through space might happen to have been nil. Physicist Bernard Jaffe, quote, the data of Michelson-Morley were almost unbelievable. There was only one other possible conclusion to draw, that the Earth was at rest, end quote. Physicist Adolph Baker, thus the failure of Michelson-Morley to observe different speeds of light